amazing vision in your head, but then you kind of quickly find yourself like drowning in tasks and deadlines and all that.
Yeah.
Happens to the best of us, I think.
It does. It does.
So today we're going to equip you to help you conquer that project chaos with a really powerful tool.
That's right.
It's called critical path analysis, or CPA for short.
Yeah, CPA, it's like having a secret weapon for your projects. You can map out every single step and see exactly which ones are like mission critical for hitting that target.
I like that. It's like a GPS for your project.
Exactly.
It's guiding you through the maze of all those tasks so you can reach your destination on time and hopefully with a little less stress.
Yeah, a little less stress, that's the goal. And you know what's cool about CPA? It's not just for those like mega projects, It's useful for anything with multiple steps,
Oh, interesting.
like even planning a vacation,
Oh, okay.
writing a research paper, even renovating your kitchen.
I like that.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's imagine, we're tackling a big project. Maybe you're launching a new product at work, or you're finally, building that backyard deck you've been dreaming of. So how does CPA actually help us in a situation like that?
So CPA, first of all, helps you figure out how long the whole project is realistically going to take.
Okay.
Not just like a hopeful guess,
Right.
but like the real deal. And it also shows you which tasks have like some flexibility and which ones absolutely can't be delayed.
So that would be avoiding the last minute panic, right?
Exactly. And that's where this idea of a critical path comes in, is that sequence of tasks that just have to be completed on time for the whole project to stay on schedule.
If one of them slips?
If one of them slips, the
Yeah.
whole thing gets pushed back.
Got it. Okay, so to really see this in action, we're going to use an example. It's called a Park and Ride project. It's from Larson and Gray's project management book. But before we get into all the nitty gritty of that, let's just visualize how CPA works. We use diagrams, and we'll start with the simplest one, called Activity on Arrow, or AOA.
Okay. Activity on arrow, it's pretty straightforward. Like imagine each task in your project is represented by an arrow. And then the circles at the beginning and end of each arrow, those are like milestones marking the start and finish, and then the numbers along the arrows. Those show you how long each task is estimated to take.
Okay, so to make that like crystal clear, let's use a very simple example. So we've got 6 activities, label A through F. Each one has a specific duration.
Okay.
So activity A takes 2 days, and it has no prerequisite, so it can start right away. Activity B also takes 2 days, and it can also start immediately.
Okay.
Now, activity C needs 4 days, but it can only start once activity A is finished. Similarly, activity D takes 3 days, and it also depends on activity A. Activity E requires 2 days. It needs both B and C to be completed before it can even start. And then finally, activity F takes 3 days, and it can only begin after both D and E are done.
Okay, so we're starting to see like the dependencies between these activities.
Exactly. So as we start to draw this AOA diagram, you'll see we've got a network of arrows, and each arrow represents a task and its duration, how long it takes. And they're all connected based on those dependencies we talked about. So you literally start to see the flow of the project, like taking shape visually.
Thanks, sir.
And once we have this, visual representation, we can start to calculate some important timelines, specifically the earliest start and latest finish times for each activity.
Okay.
Now, I know that sounds kind of technical. Can you maybe explain that in a way that makes sense for someone who's not, a project management expert?
Absolutely. Think of it like planning a road trip. So the earliest start time is like figuring out, okay, what's the absolute earliest I can leave my house and not miss my flight?
Oh.
Right. You don't want to hit snooze
Yeah,
on that alarm clock.
definitely not.
And the latest finish is like figuring out, okay, what's the latest I did? I can arrive at my hotel and not miss my dinner reservation. You've got some flexibility, but you don't want to push it too far.
I see. Okay, so how do we actually figure these times out? Using the AOA diagram.
So we do something called a forward pass calculation. Starting at the beginning of the project, we just add up the durations of each activity along each path. And this tells us the earliest possible start time for each activity. So, for example, the earliest start time for activity C would be 2 days, since it depends on activity A, which takes 2 days to complete.
Okay, so you're adding those up as you go.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. So what about those latest finish times?
For that, we do a backward pass calculation. So we start at the end of the project, where we have our desired completion date. And we work our way backward, subtracting the durations of activities. to figure out the latest they can finish without delaying the whole project. So in our simple example, if we need the whole project to be done in 12 days, then the latest finish time for activity F would be day 12.
Okay, so forward pass, backward pass.
Forward pass, backward pass.
We're getting this clear picture of when each task can start and finish.
Precisely. And this leads us to identifying that all-important critical path, which will tell us exactly which tasks we need to focus on most intently.
Okay, I'm ready to uncover that critical path. Let's see how this all plays out. On our AOA diagram.
So remember how we talked about that critical path being like the sequence of tasks with zero wiggle room?
Yeah.
So on our AOA diagram, the critical path is visually clear. It's the path with activities that have no flexibility in their start and finish times. So our simple example, it would be activities B, E, and S.
So if any of those get delayed, the whole project gets pushed back.
Exactly. And that's why understanding that critical path is so crucial for project managers. It allows you to focus your attention and resources on those tasks that really matter and have the biggest impact on your deadline.
Okay, so I know what you're thinking. This all sounds great in theory, but how does it actually work in the real world?
Right. So let's say you're managing that park and ride project we mentioned earlier. It involves tasks like selecting a site, designing the facility, getting permits, and the actual construction.
Okay, so imagine you've mapped out your AOA diagram, you've identified your critical path, you're feeling super organized, ready to go, but then, bam, you hit a snag. The environmental approval process is taking way longer than expected. What do you do?
Okay, first, don't panic. This is where CPA becomes your superpower. It helps you stay calm and make strategic decisions, even when things go wrong.
Okay, so walk me through this. How does CPA help us navigate those unexpected delays?
Well, remember those earliest start and latest finish times we calculated? The difference between them is called float or slack. It basically tells you how much wiggle room you have for each task before it starts impacting the critical path and the overall project deadline.
So some tasks have more flexibility than others.
Exactly. And that's where you can get creative while you're waiting for that environmental approval to come through.
Yeah.
Which is on your critical path. You can focus on non-critical tasks that have some float. Maybe you can finalize the signage design or select the landscaping materials for the parking lot.
So you're basically shifting resources.
To maximize efficiency.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's all about being proactive and using CPA to your advantage.
I like it. So it's like a strategic game of Tetris where you're constantly rearranging tasks, fit everything in and meet your deadlines.
I like that analogy.
Okay, so we've been talking about activity on arrow diagrams, but you mentioned there's another type. Yes, there's also the activity on node diagram, or AON. It's essentially the same concept as AOA. But instead of using arrows to represent tasks, we use boxes or nodes.
Okay, how does that work?
So each box represents an activity, and it contains all the key information, the activity number and description, the earliest start and finish times, the latest start and finish times, and importantly, the total float.
Wait, total float, remind me what that is again.
It's basically the same as float or slack. But specifically within the context of the AON diagram, it tells us how much we can delay that particular activity without impacting the project's completion date.
So it's basically a measure of how much wiggle room we have for each task.
Exactly. And the beauty of both AOA and AON diagrams is they allow you to visually see the entire project and identify the critical path.
Okay, so let's go back to that park and ride project. Let's pretend we've mapped it out using an AON diagram. What would the critical path look like?
So the critical path for the park and ride project involves activities A, C, E, I, K, L, N, and P.
Wow, that's quite a few activities.
It is. And it highlights how important it is to understand which tasks are truly critical to the project's success.
Can you remind me what those are again?
Sure. A is selecting the site. C is designing the facility. E is getting environmental approvals. I is finalizing the design. K is awarding the construction contract. L is site preparation. N is paving. And P is landscaping.
Okay, so if any of those get delayed, it's going to directly impact the project completion date.
That's right. That's why identifying the critical path is so important. It gives you a clear roadmap of the tasks that need your utmost attention and careful management.
This is making so much sense. I'm starting to see how CPA can be a real game changer for anyone, managing a project big or small. It's not just about staying organized. It's about having that strategic advantage and anticipating potential roadblocks.
Exactly. It's about being proactive rather than reactive. CPA empowers you to make informed decisions, allocate your resources efficiently, and ultimately increase your chances of project success.
So we've seen how CPA works with both AOA and AON diagrams. And we've walked through this real-world park and ride example to see how identifying that critical path can help you navigate those unexpected delays and keep your project on track. So what does all this mean? For you, our listener, how can you apply this knowledge to your own projects? It means you don't have to be like, a project management guru to actually benefit from the power of CPA. Whether you're tackling a complex work assignment, planning a major life event like a wedding, or even just trying to organize, your weekend to-do list, CPA can help you break down that process, identify those crucial tasks, and stay on track.
What I find really empowering about CPA is that it kind of shifts your mindset from
Yeah.
feeling overwhelmed by this mountain of tasks to actually feeling in control. You're not just reacting to deadlines, you're anticipating them and strategically maneuvering around potential roadblocks.
You're like having the secret weapon
Yeah,
against procrastination and those last-minute panic.
exactly. It gives you the tools and the insights you need to tackle your projects with more confidence and clarity.
Okay, so how can our listeners start using CPA in their own lives? Do you have any, practical tips?
Absolutely. Here's a simple exercise. Think about a project you're currently working on or one you're about to start. Now grab a piece of paper, even just the back of a napkin, and try sketching out a basic AON diagram.
So just draw some boxes representing the main tasks.
Exactly. Think about how those tasks connect to each other. Which ones need to be completed before others can begin? Which ones are absolutely essential to hitting your deadline? Those are the tasks that will form your critical path.
I love that it can be such a simple exercise. You don't need fancy software or a project management degree to start using this.
That's right. It can be as simple or as complex as you need it to be. The key is to just start using it and see how it can transform your approach to projects.
Now, I have a question for you. Once you've identified your critical path, are there any strategies you can use to actually shorten the duration of those critical tasks?
That's a great question. And it brings us to the next level of CPA mastery. Once you know which tasks are critical, you can start brainstorming ways to optimize them. Could you delegate certain responsibilities to free up your time? Could you streamline processes to eliminate unnecessary steps? Could you invest in tools or resources that would help you work more efficiently?
So it's about thinking creatively
Yeah.
and finding ways to shave off time wherever possible on those critical tasks.
Exactly. Even small time savings can add up to big gains in the long run. Remember, that critical path is like the backbone of your project. If you can make that backbone stronger and more efficient, the entire project will benefit.
This has been so insightful. I feel like I have a whole new arsenal of project management tools thanks to this deep dive into CPA.
I'm glad to hear that. And remember, there are tons of resources available online. If you want to explore CPA further, you can find articles, templates, even software to help you create and manage your own critical path diagrams.
So to our listeners, go forth and conquer your projects and never fear a deadline again. CPA is your secret weapon to project success